the media have done a pretty crap job of holding key accountable for what's going on in Afghanistan in terms of an actual strategy, haven't they? Well, they haven't really done a very good job of it.
Well, what I'd say is it's too cosy and too easy to blanket all media outlets as the media.
Yep.
I think there is a tapestry out there of independent media now, and I'd be pleased to be a part of that actually have addressed this in a more proper manner.
Embedded journalism's pretty dodgy, isn't it?
Well, you're dependent on the soldiers you're embedded with to protect yourself.
So it changes. There's no real.
It's always been the way. It's always been the way.
Well, not in Vietnam. You didn't have it in Vietnam.
No,
Journalists
that's
were
right.
actually actively going to that war zone without the embedding process.
Yeah, and some of them copped it, and that's what happens in a war zone. And let's remember, we've lost one soldier in Afghanistan. We lost more than that in East Timor, and everyone thinks that was a good idea as well.
Well, because East Timor was a good idea.
I think you've raised an issue here too, that regional solutions for regional problems. And what we may see over the next 2 years, if the United States' plan comes to pass, is a regional solution to Afghanistan. But you mentioned Pakistan, and that's key to it. And winning favour there in Pakistan is obviously a difficult one.
All right, Cam, the first New Zealand death in Afghanistan. Who wins? Who loses?
Well, obviously the lieutenant loses. I think that the analysis that somehow National will use a flag-draped coffin to cover up ineptness is a little bit accurate, but the ineptness is not on the part of the government. The ineptness goes back further than that when we sent these guys there to the provincial reconstruction team, and the best vehicle that they've got to drive around in is a Toyota Hilux.
So you're saying that we haven't given them the kind of resources they need?
Absolutely, we should be giving them the best available resources, and I'm sorry, but a Hilux painted white doesn't cut it.
Why didn't Labor send the proper equipment? If they sent them in the first place, why didn't they send them the equipment?
Who knows? The other thing that is begging the question out there that no media has covered is why our troops haven't got IED jammers. There's standard equipment for embedded infantry battalions in Afghanistan from the US and from the British. Why haven't our guys availed themselves of jamming technology that would prevent command detonated IEDs from this sort of thing?
So in the first New Zealand death in Afghanistan, who wins, who loses?
No one wins in a war. The children don't win, the women don't win, the innocents don't win, the civilian populations don't win from either side. New Zealand doesn't win in this situation, and the region doesn't.
So we're all losers.
That's what happens with war, man. Moving on, issue 2. Chris Carter showed less self-preservation than a Taliban suicide bomber last week, with a coup so flawed it resembled Jerry Brownlee's attempt at becoming Greenpeace's Environmental Warrior for Mother Earth Award this year. Cam, Labour are saying that Chris isn't feeling well right now, and of course you and your blog are a part of Carter's mental health issues. You insinuate he is a gay pig, and accused his dead mother of 12 years from using a taxpayer cell phone.
I apologise for that.
Which you, very magnanimous of you. As a mental health survivor yourself, do you find John Key's attack on Chris taking sick leave unfair on those with mental health problems?
I'm not sure that Chris Carter has a mental health problem. I think that Chris Carter has a problem with getting caught having his hand in the taxpayer's pocket. Mm-hmm. And he got caught again, and this is what's blowing all of this up. Mm-hmm. But there's bigger forces in play here. Now, it was Phil Goff and Trevor Mallard. It was actually Trevor Mallard, and Phil Goff climbed on board the bandwagon that suggested that perhaps Chris wasn't all there.
He's taken sick leave. He's taken sick leave.
Of course, it played right into his hands. All right, he said, okay, you're right. I'm not feeling right. I want 2 months off. So that's just postponed Phil Goff's
shouldn't we give people with mental health issues the benefit of the doubt?
But what, do you make excuses for their actions? No one makes excuses for my actions. My actions, that's right. My actions are my actions, and I own them completely. You cannot blame anything that I do on depression or anything else, and neither should Chris Carter.
Is this the sort of draconian sick note regime that Key is promoting with his war on the worker employment conditions? Is this the sort of thing that we'll be seeing?
Well, actually, it should apply to Chris Carter.
Right,
the guy's he's got 2 months off.
Yep.
And at the end of that 2 months, if he continues to have time off,
yep,
he gets his pay docked $10 a week.
Outrageous.
$145,000 a year. He gets paid. He's now not representing the people of Te Atatu because he's on sick leave, presumably on why heck he's relaxing over there. And and he gets docked $10 a week. That is outrageous, and he should perhaps bring a sick note along.
Selwyn, as inane as Carter's coup attempt was, he's right, isn't he? I mean, unless the entire National Front bench are wiped out in a plane crash, leaving Judith Collins and Anne Tolley the only survivors, Phil can't win, can he?
Well, it's a hard one for the Labour Party. Obviously, everybody knows that when you're that far back in the polls compared to National, that it's a really tall ask to try and actually get them up over the line. However, like we know, governments can destruct and destruct themselves very, very quickly.
Oh, is this the Kevin Rudd meme?
Well, that's another thing, you know. But at this point, you can't see Labour winning it. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that it can't be an effective opposition. If it is actually shaping itself up more effective on the opposition benches, then it can actually expose National to some of that more unpalatable policy that the centre ground in New Zealand can't actually take.
Yeah.
We've seen National, mainly from media-led issues, retreating back from its policy positions. It's clearly doing that from a pragmatic point of view to make sure it actually holds on to the centre vote.
Goff's hope, isn't it, that in October when the GST changes happen and people are not going to be feeling nearly as well off as they had been promised under Key, that's going to be the tide change from then. So it's October.
Yeah.
But other than that, if the economy doesn't turn, he's not getting he's not winning, is he?
But at the same time, he is absolutely right that as soon as we get inflationary pressures coming in as a consequence of increase in GST, as soon as we get all the other kind of compliance costs that are associated with ETS coming back onto the consumer, and people realise that their tax cuts that they were promised in the last election is not going to deliver in a dollar by dollar disposable income sense, well then really the National Party's on the back foot.
Cam, who runs for National in Te Atatu in a by-election? Who's it going to be?
Well, Tao Henare will probably put his hand up and say, well, I'm the candidate.
Can he do it?
No, he can't. He can't beat Chris Carter. I think National needs to be innovative. Fat chance of that. They haven't shown too much innovation so far in candidate selection. So who is it? I don't know. I perhaps think the person who could beat Chris Carter in a by-election in Te Atatu for National hasn't yet come forward.
Right. Who should it be? Come on, you've got your insider word there.
I've heard a number of names.
Because if you have a go, it's not going to look good if National lose hard in Te Atatu, is it?
I think the game that National should perhaps play is not to stand a candidate, to allow Chris Carter to win that as an independent, destroying Phil Goff's hopes utterly.
Do you think Chris Carter will run?
Well, we haven't got a step down. The 2-month period of mental health days, ostensibly, is going to take us very close to the point of no return where the government doesn't actually have to have a by-election.
Why wouldn't National actually use Brian Neeson or someone like that? It seems quite privy to using cronies from the past in other areas.
I'm not sure Brian Neeson has attended a National Party function in quite some years.
I think he's banned from them.